And what ones would not?
Two.
For the first 1,000 years or so, it was the Catholic Church who determined how worship would be done and whether those who proclaimed the gospel of Jesus Christ could marry or not. And it was not. Whether this kind of activity or that was forbidden, whether fish could be eaten solely as a meal on Friday or whether meat could be eaten. And so many other requirements of the faith. And eventually, about 500 years ago, a Catholic priest, Martin Luther, started to protest some of these burdens. And that protest spread across Europe. The Protestants imposed a different set of requirements upon the people, freeing them from some, such as marriage, for those who proclaimed the gospel. It was now allowed. And fish didn't have to be eaten on Friday. But they brought in other requirements also. We're part of that Reformation, those protesters. And I imagine many of you remember a time you wouldn't dare go to church without a hat on, ladies. Do you remember those days? And men, you might remember when you wouldn't dare go unless you were wearing a suit. Do you remember those times? And other social requirements that if you're going to worship God, you better abide by these regulations if you're going to be good enough. We went through a revolution over who speaks for God, and we still only imposed our own way rather than stepping aside and letting God speak about what was required. And the United Church has been leading the way in trying to show people that we are not so burdened by God. And most of these obligations and requirements are made by human beings. The Protestant Reformation allowed married men to become ministers of the gospel, but we drew the line at women. We can be proud to be part of a church that was one of the first that realized that line that was drawn was man-made or human-made. And we have women preachers as well. Of course, up until 1968, if a woman got married, she had to step out of the pulpit, of course. Up until the late 1960s. If a woman got married, she couldn't be a preacher anymore because nobody wanted to have a woman with a big belly standing before them. That would be unseemly. We replaced one artificial burden with another. We can be proud that since the 1980s, the United Church has been leading the way in accepting people of different sexual orientations as equally acceptable by God, realizing that that was another burden that was invented by humans. And the marriage policy approved by this congregation just a few months ago, which is posted on the bulletin board, reflects that we believe all God's creatures are equal. All God's people are able to be married. Any consenting adults. And in so many other ways, we have been moving ahead, but too often we merely replace one artificial boundary by another. One burden replaced by a different one. So let me ask you, what are the burdens Carleton Kirk places upon people? That becomes harder, doesn't it? It's easy with hindsight to look back. And it's hard to see us today. Now, you don't require suits and ties anymore. You don't require hats. Do you require children to be silent in the church? I don't think so. Alexis, are you allowed to talk in church? You are. Yeah. You're allowed to be yourself. we allow people to be ourselves in church. And if that means smiling and talking or waving or wandering around, all of that is good. But maybe we need to change the way that question is worded and ask how the community outside this sanctuary sees us. What do they think we require for them to be part of this community of faith? And that's harder for us to determine, isn't it? But it is so important, because the world has stopped being involved in churches, thinking that churches believe you have to be righteous to be part of the congregation, at least self-righteous, that it's only for the good, only for the self-respecting as defined by the churches themselves. And that is the way it was 50 years ago. 50 years ago, if you weren't married, you weren't allowed to come to church in a unblessed relationship. Well, now we know God blesses all relationships of love. But much of the world doesn't know that we have wisened up a little bit to what God is doing. Much of the world has never heard that we're starting to realize this revelation from God is a lot different from the requirements we placed upon people. And we need to share that knowledge. We need to bring that good news, that gospel, to the people around the church and let them know that the standards once held by this community no longer exist the same way. Our standards now, I believe, are love. If you come in love, if you come with a desire to love and be loved, then come as you are. And you will be loved, and your love will be received. And that's a radical change for the church. Jesus said, "Come to me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Rest from all of these burdens that have been imposed upon you, that we have been part of imposing on people. And now, thank God, we've heard that revelation from God that allows us to stop being part of the problem and to share the yoke with others so that their load will become lighter and their ways easier. That's what love is all about. Why do we do that? Why is it our human tendency to impose weighty restrictions upon people? Well, truth be told, we find it hard to believe that God loves us. If truth be told, deep inside, we doubt that we're good enough for God. God is perfect. How could God love a sinner like me? When I get mad at Ramon, when I get fed up with Jerry or Don sometimes, how could God still love me? When I say a bad word in my mind or even out loud, how could God love me? All the things I've done through my life, how could God love me? How could grace ever touch this sinner and pluck it like a brand from the fire and shape it into something good? Can I trust that? And so we try to earn God's love. We try to do more and work harder and try and try and try, and that's exhausting. We try to be better and be something else and be whatever we can to impress God. And we try to learn all the tricks the world has for gaining love. All the world is full of tricks that will get you love if you do them. It works in the world. It doesn't work with God. You can't earn God's love. You can't be good enough for God is perfect and we're never going to get there. All we can do is come like a little child and say, Father, help me. Father, love me. Father, hold me. Father, comfort me. Father, embrace me with your love. It's hard for us to do, to humble ourselves in the sight of the Lord. It's hard for us, self-made persons, self-confident people, people like those in Galilee, to say, I'm going to let God accept me just as I am. And thank God for doing so. And that's how I'm going to accept others. And not impose requirements upon them either. Let's stand and greet one another with the peace of Christ.
Our ministers. Our gifts for mission and service support the continuing education ministers, as well as those in the discernment process. Let's hear a story from the Reverend Bronwyn Corley, Program Coordinator for Ministry Recruitment, reflecting on the role of ministers in life's joys and sorrows. Life is full of ups and downs that we have the privilege to share with our communities of faith. Thank you for our ministers who have answered God's call to lead in our communities of faith and continue to answer God's call again and again. Thank you for living out your call in the United Church of Canada. Thank you for being present in our big moments, baptisms and funerals, weddings and divorces, celebrations and crises. Thank you for visiting, witnessing, and walking with us. We appreciate your reminder that God is with us while we wrestle with life, faith, and love. Thank you for your various gifts and unique service. Thank you for putting your own problems and pains on hold while you hold ours. Thank you for the sermons, prayers, visits, theological reflections, and worship. Thank you for the time to lead your families to be with someone else's. Thank you for your faithful leadership. Thanks to our gifts to mission and service, we support our ministers through training and continuing education at theological schools and education centers. Mission and service also provides support through pastoral relations at presbytery and conference. We sing thanksgiving for the commitment of those who minister to communities in times of joy and in times of crisis. If mission and service is already a regular part of your giving, thank you so much. If you have not given for mission and service, please join me in making mission and service a regular part of your life of faith. In all our mission and service giving, with a willing heart, we sing thanksgiving to God.
I feel the winds of God today. Let us sing together.
I feel the winds of God today.
ministers all and share the burdens of others to make one another's burdens light. And part of the ways in which we do this is as we present our offering, and God uses it to help others. Let us worship that way. And enabling us to be part of the process of lightening the burdens of others. Use what we give, who we are, and how we live. For that purposes, we pray that we might have the glory in our lives. Amen.
Day 1. Day.
Let us pray together. Lord, we come unto you, lifting up our burdens to you, our worry, our anxiety,